Hey everyone, welcome back to 996 The Howl. This video and the next video, we're going to be looking at unrestricted free agents across the NHL. Any player that Utah likes, they could offer them a contract and that player could accept it or they could walk away. I decided to start with defensemen first. Next video will be about forwards, both wingers and centermen. Started with defensemen because it's no secret Utah has currently, as the time I'm recording this video, no defenseman signed, no NHL defenseman signed heading into next season. I did the restricted free agent video. They should be offering contracts to Moser, Dursey, Valimaki, and Kesselring. Kesselring and Valimaki should be moving down the depth chart and add in more defensemen through free agency. That way they don't have to cost their future in terms of draft picks, but they might pull off a trade if they like someone across the league, and now that they could spend money, they may send a second round pick here or there to get someone they've had their eyes on. But the point of this video is not for me to be right and say, oh, look, they got one or two of the six defensemen I had on the board. The point is, I've been listening to Bill Armstrong. I know what the team sort of needs. And listening to Bill Armstrong's interviews, you can kind of tell which way he's going to go. He wants to get older. He wants to get tougher. That's the main point of this offseason. The Coyotes last season, they were one of the youngest teams, if not the youngest teams, right after the trade deadline, after trading away Zucker and Dumba. So they need to get older, need some more veteran presence, need to be tougher to play against, especially on the back end. The Utah defense leaves a lot to be desired currently, but they're moving in the right direction. Also, they need to spend $20 million to get to the cap floor. I said in the restricted free agent video they could spend about $15 million on restricted free agents, and still they got some money to spend. I didn't put the big game hunting defensemen like Montour and Brady Shea. I think those are the two sought after defenseman on the free agent market. Montour, for me, he had a 40-point drop off from last season, from 2 seasons ago to last season. That doesn't bode well to me. I'm not going to spend, $5-6+ million on a guy who had a 40-point drop off on the Florida Panthers. And then Brady Shea, he just had a career year. He's coming off a $5.25 million contract. He could ask for $7, and that would be one of the, next to Clayton Keller, Utah's most expensive player. I don't get it. Even though they have a new owner that they could spend money, it doesn't mesh well with the locker room to bring in a guy who has no history with the team and now he's the most paid player on the team. Bill Armstrong's the type of guy to look for value. I know he was probably handcuffed by ownership and forced to do that, but I just don't think Montour and Brady Shea really fit, and they're older as well, so you're going to be paying them for their twilight years in their career. But these are the six I like. We'll start with Brett Pesce, 29 years old, makes $4 million. Even though he's 6'3", 206 pounds, he's not an overtly physical player. And if you see, those point totals are terrible, 13 points in 82 games played. This guy is one of the best shutdown D-men in the league. His job is to keep the puck out of the Utah zone, break up plays. He's just a great, sturdy defenseman. And even though he's 29 years old, he's got 9 full NHL seasons under his belt. He's been in the league for a very long time. Just a responsible defenseman. And you pair him with a guy like Dursey, he could let that offensive defenseman go, roam, take risk. He'll cover them and not take risks himself. We saw a lot of that when Dumba was on the Coyotes, that both defensemen would push up in the zone and then we'd have so many odd man rushes on the way back. But Pesce, a sturdy defenseman, 9 NHL seasons. He makes $4 million a year. Maybe you offer him $4.5 million by like 3 or 4, maybe 5 years. Not too much as the cap keeps rising the next couple years. You could get Brett Pesce for a very good price and sort of teach your defenseman the right way to play defensive hockey. Then we go to Gostisbehere. We all know Ghost. He, resurrected his career with the Coyotes and then signed with Detroit the last offseason. 56 points in 82 games played. He's a bit old, 31 years old. And I know he's looking for the last contract of his career, sort of a 5-year contract. He'll be on power play number 1 if Utah signs him. We've got familiarity with Ghost. The coaching staff knows about him. The GM, Bill Armstrong, knows about him. He makes $4.1 million. He's small. He's not going to be that intimidating, hard to play against defensemen. This is just to get Gostisbehere and put him on power play number 1. And then you have Dursey on power play number 2. A great 1-2 punch that could facilitate some offense from the back end, which Utah sorely missed last season when they were the Coyotes. But yeah, you're looking at maybe $4.5 million by 4 or 5 years. I know the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, I don't think they're going to go with this guy. But, you know, Utah is missing that number 1 offensive defenseman. Whether they get it through a trade, I don't think they're going to get it in free agency. There's no, like I said, Montour and Shea are number 1 defensemen if they come to Utah. But I don't know. They're approaching 30 years old, if not they're older than 30, and their production is going to start decreasing. You sort of want a young guy as your power play number 1. And Gostisbehere, 31 years old, doesn't really fit that bill. But hey, you could have, you know, if Gostisbehere liked the coaching staff, liked the locker room, maybe you could get him for some good value. And the coaching staff already has 2 seasons of coaching Gostisbehere. They just know how to use him in certain situations. Then we start to go with the gritty, physical, intimidating defenseman, which I love. I would love if Utah grabbed Hakanpää from Dallas. He's cheap, $1.5 million. He's a veteran, 32 years old. He was drafted by St. Louis when Bill Armstrong was with St. Louis, played his first 3 seasons with the Blues, so Bill Armstrong is familiar with him. 6'5", 218 pounds. You can get him, you know, for $2 million for 3 years and have him as your Josh Brown replacement, just a sturdy, physical, intimidating defenseman. Or maybe you go younger with Chatfield. I'll go back to Zadorov. Younger and cheaper. He's making league minimum. He's 28 years old on Carolina. He was playing a bit. He was playing on a third pairing, but I feel like he could be a second pairing defenseman. And even though he's 1 year younger than Pesce, he only has 2 full NHL seasons under his belt, whereas Pesce has 9 seasons, like I said. So, and he's smaller than Pesce, but plays a way more physical game than Pesce. So even though you just look at numbers, hey, this guy's 29 years old, 6'3", he's probably a big body defenseman. No, he's a shutdown, smart defenseman, breaks up plays, and the younger and smaller defenseman is the more physical type of guy with only 2 NHL seasons under his belt. Zadorov, I don't know how he's making $3.75 million, but this guy's a huge monster, currently on Vancouver. And as I'm recording this video, he has 8 points in 12 games played. I'm recording this before Game 7, so I don't know if he advanced to the conference finals. But 6'6", 235 pounds, intimidating, hard to play against, a long stick. Look at Utah's prospects coming up: Lamoureux, Simashev, defensemen with long sticks, tall, big body guys. He could be a great stopgap to, you know, starting to create that defensive identity. I feel like Utah doesn't have a defensive identity yet. Forward group, they're pretty good. You know what you're getting. You got young, skilled guys who can make high danger plays in high pressure situations. But their defense, it doesn't have an identity yet. So to get some big body guys like Hakanpää, Zadorov would be great. I wouldn't, you know, offer Zadorov $4 million. I think that's a bit rich, to be honest. But maybe he's 29 years old. Maybe you could get him for like 5 years at $3 million. Maybe he'll bite for that just to get some stability. He went from the Avalanche to Chicago to Calgary to Vancouver. Maybe he wants to set his roots somewhere. And then we go to Edmondson from Toronto, a playoff defenseman, stay at home, shut down. He was drafted by St. Louis, won the cup with St. Louis. Again, familiarity with Bill Armstrong. 6'5", 224 pounds. He's not a point producer. He's just a pure shutdown, hard to play against defensemen. I would not give him a raise. I mean, at this point, he's just a shutdown bottom pairing D-man. Maybe you offer him $2.5 million for 5 years, and he's just your sixth, seventh pairing guy. And if if Utah ever makes a playoffs, he'd be a great playoff bottom pairing defenseman to have to shut down other opposition top lines. So that's it for defensemen. Again, it's about getting older, getting not too older. It's about getting more veteran presence on the back end, bigger, harder to play against, and just starting to create a defensive identity with the team. And for me, my top pick would be Pesci. Gostisbehere would be all right. I'd love him on the team, but the money and contract has to be right. I'm a bit wary about him. But grabbing one or two of these guys, I would love them. Just plug them on the bottom pairing and just start being meaner in front of the net and helping out our goalies. The Coyotes, since the rebuild, they're not tough in front of the net. They don't clear out the crease really well, and they've been missing that sort of shutdown defenseman since they started their rebuild again. So I would love it if they had some monsters on the back end as a sort of stopgap to wait for Lamoureux and Simishev to come to the NHL. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.